How's it going, everybody? Want to welcome everybody back to the Cub Cadet 1641 project here. Just fired it up and ran it for a little bit here. Going to start doing all the servicing on the engine and the transmission today to get that all taken care of. Also, since I shot the last video, I did clean the hood. Kind of a secret formula I use. Gojo or Fast Orange hand cleaner with a little bit of pumice in it. If you're really careful, you can get all the sit-in dirt and grime out of the hoods of these plastic Cub Cadets, plastic hood Cub Cadets, and then went over it with wax compound, got it really looking good. But today I want to address the mechanical things on the tractor. Nothing really wrong with what's in it, but I just, for my own peace of mind and to help my grandparents out, I want to make sure that everything is up to snuff and new, and that way I can keep service records on what was done when from here on out. So here's what we got planned. Got a new air filter for the tractor, new fuel filter, spark plugs, going to do an oil change, and also a hydro fluid and filter change. So like I said, I just got the tractor warmed up. Not going to do an exact step-by-step on how to do this stuff, but I'll show as I go along and what I'm running into. So anyways, I'll get to work here and we'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, as you guys can see, I'm laying into the tractor. One nice thing about these newer Cubs is that they have a designated drain on the bottom of the transmission to drain the high tran out of these. If you watched my video on my Cub Cadet 123, you will note that I had to pull the whole back pan off the transmission to drain the fluid, but when MTD took over and went to these aluminum rear ends, they put the drain in the bottom. And I had a question on my other video about filter location on these hydros. Filter's just located right on the front of the transmission there. This one is under the pump itself. The ones on the older ones are a little bit in front of the pump, but they're still underneath. And this fluid looks a little bit milky and watery, so I'm glad I'm getting it changed and putting the correct stuff in it. Also have a new filter for the tractor, so definitely important to keep these filters changed every so often, because a lot of the times with these hydros, if they don't want to move, it's usually just the filter plugged. So I'm gonna let this finish draining. Might even stick a jack under it and let it drain out, and pull the filter off and put the new filter on. Let me get up here. I will show you the fill location for the hydro, and then we'll start draining the oil. Okay, I'm back topside now. What we're looking at here is the back of the fender pan. There's the seat. All you gotta do on these is slide the seat forward, and you have your access hole with a dipstick, which they started adding on the later IH Cubs. My 123 just has the check plug, but later on they decided to add a dipstick to the transmission. So that's your fill location for the hydro fluid. Probably not going to film putting any back in. Pretty self-explanatory. Just put the plug back in, take the old filter off, put a little bit of oil on the new filter, screw it on, and then start filling it. Like the 123, these hold about 7 quarts of oil, 7 quarts of High-Tran rather. So I'll get it buttoned up and get that done, and while that's finishing draining, I think I'm going to pull the side curtain off, and I'll show you guys where the oil drain location is on these. Alright, well, the rear end is still draining. We're down beside the tractor now. Got the side curtain off, as you can see. So we are going to do the oil change now before the engine cools off too much, because it's about 30 degrees outside today. So definitely had to warm things up to get it draining. I'm getting close here. This hose right here is your oil drain. All you gotta do is put a nut, or not a nut, a wrench on where my thumb is here on the hose, and put another wrench on the cap there, let it drain out. So I'm gonna get a container and let that drain out while the tractor's still warm. Also, the filter on these is situated in such a way that you can partially fill them with oil prior to putting them back on, which helps with starvation during initial startup on these. So anyway, that's about all there is to it, is drain the old oil out with the hose there, take the filter off, partially fill it before you put the new one on, put the cap back on the hose, and the oil fill is here on the valve cover on these. So I have to look again. I think these take about a quart and a half of oil roughly, but don't hold that as the gospel. I'm not entirely sure on these. I haven't messed with one of these Briggs Vanguards before, so I have to check and see exactly what they hold for oil. So anyways, I'm gonna get that done and get the hydro plugged up and refilled, and then after I get the oil and the hydro done, we'll get to the air filter and the spark plugs. Okay, we're back on the 1641 project here. Got the oil filter changed, all new oil in. Actually takes a quart and 3/4, not a quart and a half like I originally thought, so no big deal there. Also got the new filter underneath, as you saw the old one on there. Got the fluid in. Not quite sure I'm full yet. I probably put about 6.5 quarts in it. So I'll run it around and check it with the dipstick after it gets run and drained back in, and make sure it doesn't need topped off or anything. So I suppose next on the list we'll tackle the air cleaner here. Not too much to it, just got these 2 snaps here. We'll undo on the cover, pull it off. There's your air cleaner. This one's pretty dirty and the pre-cleaner's falling apart, so just 7/16 nut on top, so just pull it off and put your new one on. One thing I would like to note, walk over here, the new pre-cleaner on the air filter, you should put a little bit of oil on to help it trap the dirt a little bit better. So but anyway, I'm gonna get a ratchet and socket and pop this old air cleaner off and put the new one on, and then we'll get to the spark plugs and be good to go. Okay, we're over here at the right side bank of the 16 horse Briggs here. As you can see, got the spark plug out. Here's the one that was in it. As you can see, if the camera will focus there, tip's pretty nice and brown, which is a good sign, but probably from age or somebody not checking these before they put them in. Could go either way. These are actually over gapped by about 10 thousandths. but looks to me like it's age. I can actually see where the electrode looks like it's been burnt from use. So here's what I'm throwing in the tractor. I personally like to use these auto light plugs. These are 3924 plug is what they call for this tractor, gapped to 30 thousandths. Spark plug gap tool here. One thing you do want to check on these plugs is the gap before you throw them in, because they're not always bang on where you want them. These plugs here were actually set to probably about 35 to 40. It was probably closer to 40. So what you want to do is, if they're over gapped, you want to find something hard, like a anvil or a vise or something, and just carefully tap the electrode back down. Or if they're under gapped, the tools like this have the hole in them to be able to bend the electrode tang out where you need it to be a little bit. But anyway, the plugs are the last task on the job today, so I'm going to get these thrown in and we'll fire it up and see how it runs with the new oil and new hydro fluid, and also new air filter and the plugs. So we'll talk to you guys later.